this up. Just give me one more moment.
Mhm.
All right.
But, you know, not a math.
Ew. All right. So if I'll just real quickly. I'll quickly do the background information, and then we'll get started. This is a virtual meeting for Newtown Township. We are taking public comment in one of four ways. A public comment could have been dropped off in the blue drop box at the front of the main entrance to the building. We have checked that this evening, and there was no public comment in the box. You may also make public comment by raising your hand during the meeting through the Zoom process. And you should be used to doing that. We've been doing that for quite a while. You can also do it through a phone-in option. And then finally, you can make public comment by submitting public comment, an email to publiccomment@newtowntownship.org. And again, that's an email to publiccomment@newtowntownship.org. And that's all one word for public comment and all one word for @Newtown Township. Mr. Chairman, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Neese. I'll call the January 24th, 2022 meeting of the Board of Supervisors to order. Can we do a roll call, Mr. Neese?
Yes, Mr. Altieri,
Present.
Mr. Partridge,
Here.
Ms. Roberts Lightcap,
Here.
Mr. Russo,
Here.
and Ms. Chanlis is not here today.
Thank you very much, Mr. Neese. And I believe we also have our engineer as well and our township solicitor.
Oh, yes, your engineer, your township solicitor, and your manager here.
Thank you very much, Mr. Neese. I do want to announce that the board did meet in executive session this evening to discuss 3 legal matters and 1 personnel matter. With that, we will now do a moment of silence. Let us remember the officer from New York City who tragically lost his life last night, and use that as a reminder to always say a special prayer for our first responders, especially those who wear the badge every day. Let us stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll move down to the approval of the agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion was made by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap, seconded by Supervisor Partridge. There is just one change that we need to make to 13.7. We just need to add pursue to. So the motion shall read, consider authorizing the township solicitor and staff to take the necessary steps to pursue to purchase properties within the township. With that change, Supervisor Roberts Lightcap, are you still fine with that motion?
Yes.
And are you still fine, Supervisor Russo, as the second?
Yes.
Or actually, I guess that was Supervisor Partridge. You were the second. Are you still fine with that, Supervisor Partridge?
Yes.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. We'll now move down to public comment for agenda items only. Let the record reflect that there are no members of the public present physically here. Mr. Neese, are there any members of the public who wish to provide public comment via Zoom?
I'm looking, I do not see any hands raised. Give me just one moment. Confirming that there's nothing new in the email. And there's nothing new in the email. So the only email that you had is actually a comment not related to anything on the agenda.
Yep, and I have that marked down when we get to that specific agenda item. With that being said, we'll now move into the minutes. Can I get a motion to consider approving the minutes from the January 10th, 2021 meeting?
Don't move as written.
Second.
Motion was made by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap, seconded by Supervisor Russo to approve the minutes from the January 10th, 2021 meeting. Is there any board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. Section 9, appointment to boards and commissions. We are going to be appointing the appointment of an alternate conflict engineer. Charles Catania will be the engineer. Is that the name of his firm as well, Mr.
It's
Neese?
Catania Engineer.
Catania Engineer.
Yes.
Catania Engineering Associates Incorporated. I also do think it's important to note, again, for the record, that this Catania is not related to our solicitor Catania. I just think that that's important to note there. So is there a motion to approve Catania Associates Incorporated, Inc.
So moved.
as the alternate conflict engineer? Motion was made by Supervisor Partridge. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap. Any board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries. Okay, appointment to the library board. Mr. Neese, I'm going to turn this over to you.
We have two names that were on the library board before. Apologize. I'm phoning a friend real quick here on this one.
Do you want us to skip down? and
Can we
come
skip
back?
on that? And
Yep.
then when we get done doing reports, hopefully I'll have the names for you.
Everybody fine with that?
Yes.
All right, let's
Yep.
move down the reports. We have in our packet the report from the police chief, Chris Lunn. He has informed me that he has nothing to add. Does any board member have any questions for the chief?
Yep.
Seeing none, we'll move down to 10.2, report from the fire department, Chief Everlof. I don't know if he's on, if he has anything he wants
He
to
is
add.
on.
Chief, if you want to add anything, raise your hand. If not, we'll move on.
He has not raised his hand.
Perfect. Any board members have any questions for Chief Lunn? Seeing none, we'll move down to the report from Public Works, George Sharitz. George, I don't know if you have anything you want to add. While we wait to confirm that, I do just want to note, I know that last month we talked about how we thought they did a fantastic job with the snowstorm, but I don't think we also recognize them for the hard work that they did as it relates to the leaf collection. So I just want to read an excerpt from his report. In December, the Public Works Department completed the collection of leaves that had started on October 25th. Each street we collected leaves from was visited at least once before Thanksgiving and then a second time before Thanksgiving and Christmas. Bagged leaves were also dropped off at the Public Works yard. This is what I thought was the most interesting. 323 truckloads of leaves were collected in 2021. Each load is 25 yards, which equals 8,075 yards, or over 2,000 tons of leaves were collected. Approximately 200 bags of leaves were also dropped off at the Public Works yard. So I think that service that we allow for our residents to drop that off is proven to be successful as individuals continue to do that. So thank you for that, George, and thank you to the Public Works Department for continuing that high level of professionalism. We'll now move down to 10.4, report from the building/code enforcement officer, Mr. Rezchek. We all have his report. Do any board members have any questions? I'm guessing he has nothing to add either, Mr. Neese. He's not raising his hand on that.
No.
Perfect. Report from the finance director, Mr. LaFiata. Any board members have anything they'd like to ask? Mr. LaFiata, I suspect, does not have anything he wants to add, so we'll move down to the report from the library director, Arlene. I don't think any board members have anything that they want to add for Arlene or ask Arlene. Thank you very much. And I'm guessing she has nothing that she wants to add either, right, Mr. Neese?
She does have her hand raised.
She does? Perfect.
Hello, everyone. Hi, I'm sorry, I don't have my picture up as I just got in from the library, but I wanted to make sure to thank the township supervisors and the township staff, especially Stephen Neese and George Sharretts, for the terrific job on our carpet. And I encourage you all to come over and see it. The library looks amazing. And I just wanted to thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Arlene. And I heard that, from your report, it looks like in addition to the rugs, you're also able to do some rearranging to make it more free flowing and allow for greater accessibility for people. So I think that's quite frankly a win for everyone.
And I would just mention, we had not intended necessarily to paint when we got in there. And we got the carpet kind of torn out and got everything moved out of the room and went, ooh, this would probably do better with a quick touch up of paint. And so one of our local contractors, Rick Thompson, really came in and brought a team in and helped us be able to do that as a process. So we have a lot to be thankful for there, and thank him as well. I mean, we are paying him, but he made it work by bringing his team in on the weekends and things like that to allow us to get that done.
Awesome. All right, 10.7, report from the township engineer, Ms. Nelson.
I did not have a written report, but I wanted to update you on the Glendale Road drainage. Contractor has indicated that he's still on track for a mid-February start, and completion is expected by the end of March. I provided the residents an updated schedule via an email on Thursday last week. With respect to Earls Lake, Stephen Neese and I met with the Radnor Township manager and engineer on January 19th to discuss the potential to submit a joint grant application to address the aftermath of the partial dam breach. I'm investigating the cost of preparing the necessary plans and estimates to submit a grant application, and we'll bring that back to the next Board of Supervisors meeting. And with respect to Green Valley, North Line, and Township Building sewer repairs, we have all the paperwork back, and I believe Stephen signed them today. You get to keep one of those for your records. They simultaneously with the contract documents submitted shop drawings, which we have completed our review and sent them some very minor comments on Friday. So their ordering should be underway. And that completes my report.
Thank you very much, Ms. Nelson. Is there any board questions?
I have a question. Eileen, the material they need to do this repair, is that readily available or is it a long lead?
I've gotten two different stories so far. One was a 6-month lead time and the other one was a 2.5-month lead time. We had explained in the bid process that they can't just use one supplier and say, we can't get it. We need them to demonstrate that they've looked everywhere.
Okay. Thank you.
Welcome.
Any other board members have any questions for Ms. Nelson? All right, thank you very much, Ms. Nelson. We'll now move down to 10.8, report from the township manager, Mr. Neese.
Yes, I have a couple quick things, maybe not so quick, but we'll keep them as quick as I can. We were informed late either Thursday or Friday morning from In Community, which is one of our publications that we use to get information out to the community. It's the one that we share with the school district and also with the recreation, Marple Newtown Recreation. And they have announced that they are pulling out of the Philadelphia area completely. And so we are, just so you know, we're going to be meeting with the school district and Marple Newtown Recreation and talk about where do we go forward from here. They would like to still do something as a joint publication. I believe that it's probably still in the township's best interest. I'm just not sure where the costs are going to lie. And so we're going to be working on that. And I anticipate that we'll be getting back to you, if not in the first meeting in February, the second meeting in February, as soon as we can get with the school district and Marple Newtown Recreation. I know we have a tentative hold for a meeting this week. I just don't know if that's been confirmed yet. So we're looking at that. The second item on the agenda is hybrid meeting update. You know, we've gone to as few people as possible in the room, and tonight is an example where there's all 5 of us that are here, and then as many people that want to attend virtually as they can. I believe with where we're headed with the Omicron variant, we probably could go back to at least having all the board members in attendance. If they wish to be, we'll be able to continue to do hybrid for anybody that doesn't feel comfortable being in the room. But we will bring back in all of our third parties as well. And we'll start that in February. We'll do that for all of our boards and commission meetings. So if all the board members want to be present, they can be present. We can hold about 25 people in the room. And so we'll continue to allow for that and do that. So we'll do that for the month of February. And then as we get near the end of February, we'll make a determination whether we need to continue that into March or whether we'll be ready to return to just doing it without doing the hybrid method like we're doing right now. But for the month of February, we'll continue to allow the public to comment as we are currently doing right now and to be involved in the meetings by attending this way. I just would make note that though we might go, we will go back to the other way, you can still see the meeting on YouTube live. It's about a 10 or 15 second delay, but you're seeing it live if you want to see it during that way. And then finally, in your packet that we sent out to you, there was a letter correspondence from two members of the Bartram Bridge. I since found out it was really from one member of the Bartram Bridge. It was actually from the Willistown side member. There is a response letter that I put together. I hope you've had a chance to read that. We're going to release that letter tomorrow. I've gotten one comment back that we should italicize the questions, and I will do so on that. I've also shared that letter with the Willistown manager, and she's sharing that letter with her board tonight because they happen to be meeting tonight as well. I do know that their board is meeting with their two board member, let me say this again. Their board chair is meeting with the two Bartram Bridge board members that are Willistown members tomorrow afternoon to kind of go through what was in this letter as well. This is the things that are in the letter are not anything new. They just keep asking the same questions, and we've just now documented it so that they'll have it to refer back to.
Does this have anything to do with the repair that's desperately needed on their side of the bridge?
This is not really to do with that. I mean, they were asking whether the money is there. The big issue in the letter was whether or not we would continue to fund the fundraising activities of the Friends of the Bartram Bridge in regards to their liability and those kind of things. And we had told them several years back, if you'll recall, I think you might have been on the board, Mike, it might have been right before you got on. They had the same question, and we basically had said at that time, if you put a fundraising plan together that makes sense, the board would consider funding the officer's liability for 1 year while you get up off the ground and you start raising monies, because if you're really raising monies, you should be able to cover it. And so that was what we said. Willistown's in a complete agreement with where that is. And we still have never received a fundraising plan, and that's why we're where we are. There's some other issues that were in the letter as well related to budgeting and things like that, which are answers that were pretty typical. Just so the public knows, we have an agreement with Willistown on the bridge. We share the cost pretty much 50-50 on what it takes to maintain the bridge. They cover the electricity, we cover the security. That works out about right on a monthly basis for that. And then for other expenses, we each budget usually a couple $1,000s, and we send them that. And as they spend it down, they let us know. There was in our budget for 2022, there was a request for $125,000 from each municipality, a total of 250, to address some repairs to the bridge that are needed. And my understanding is they are looking at that. Our representative, Ed Johnston, has been the chair over the last year, and he has had a conversation and is a little bit concerned that the current cost to do that project is going to go up substantially just because of some material issues. So he has said if we could put that off for a little bit, he would like to do that to see if the price of materials comes back down. So, so that project may get put on hold for a short period of time. And I say short, it may be into 2023, but they're just watching it based on what's happening with the market. But other than that, that's basically what the concern was with the letter and that. And so we've addressed that, but I just wanted to be able to give them a copy. They meet tomorrow night here, and just so the public knows. Bartram Bridge goes back and forth between the two municipalities in their meeting. And one quarter they meet here, one quarter they meet at Willistown. And then in July, I think it's July, they typically meet out at the bridge. And then the last quarter is whichever municipality was not last. And they go back, and then the next year it's the opposite. So one year we have two meetings here, one year they have two meetings there, and then in the opposite year we have at the one meeting and then at the bridge. So that's all I have.
I have a question for
Yep.
Shanice. How is Mr. Sherridge doing with getting the equipment that was on his list of things to obtain this year?
So you gave us permission. I believe it was at the first meeting in the year. I think it was at the reorg meeting to order a 450 instead of a 350, or not order, but to take possession of a 450. I don't think that's come in yet. I think that's still in the queue on the Ford side, but we have put in that we want that one. As for other equipment, I would have to get more of a list from George to let you know exactly where we are. I'd like
to get an update for the next meeting just to see, because
yeah.
I know everybody's having a hard time getting everything.
Yeah, it's been tough. We ordered insulation for the ambulance trailer. I believe it was back in November, and they were just able to get here today. So it is a little bit of a challenge. We're looking at that in light of, we're supposed to do the roof on the other section of this building, over the library and over the administration offices. We had talked about that project. I've been talking to a couple people who are in the field of doing roofing. Getting roofing right now is incredibly difficult, and getting the insulation, which is how this is, it's almost impossible. So we're going to look at some options. George and I are going to have a couple conversations, see what some options are.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Neese? I do have just one. The last meeting, we had a conversation in the public with regards to BPG and how this board was not, or certain members, not to speak for the entire board, certain members, myself included, Mr. Russo, and I believe others, had some concerns with BPG continuing to have dirt on the road and using access points that we didn't think were appropriate or that they were entitled to. I believe there's an update, and I think it's important for those who are listening to have that update.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I have, so just so you know, that this was tackled on multiple fronts after the meeting. We involved, obviously, Eileen and myself on our meetings with, excuse me. I'll try to be a little bit more animated. I'll be a little more animated in my movement. So Eileen and myself started meeting with them with meetings that we already had scheduled in addition to some other steps. Andy who goes out every day to the site, met with the contractor on site. In addition to that, Rich got involved, our special counsel, related to the roles and looking at what we could do, all the steps that we could take legally. And so in that, we started taking certain steps, and it seemed like things continued, that things weren't changing. So we put up a chain initially that kind of blocked off not the right in front of the entrance, but a little bit further up, and still allowed to go up in the driveway, but didn't allow to go onto the site. There was some concern about that chain in regards for some safety issues on the site. So the BPG Equus ended up actually putting in 2 posts in the ground and a chain more towards the entrance. So there's just enough room for a pickup truck to pull off. There's not enough room for a large vehicle to pull off at that location. And so they've gone back and they've matted on the 2 sides where the trucks had kind of started cutting into the edges on the corners of that driveway. They've come back and they've matted it. It'll take probably an additional matting in the spring once the weather is such that something can grow there. Right now, nothing is going to grow there.
So Stephen, you might want to explain what the matting does, that it holds the
So
dirt back
yeah,
from.
the matting holds the dirt back and is supposed to stop any erosion from that spot. I would state that now that chain's there, as long as that chain stays up, there would not be a way for anybody to come in and out during that time, other than it's set up so that the fire company and the ambulance have access. The KBX, because our pump station is there, has the access and they access it daily. But other than that, it's supposed to be limited access. I would make note that when we did all of that, they moved their entrance over to the winding way, and there was an entrance already there, but they started using it more, and also an entrance onto Charles Ellis Drive. Pretty much every day there's been issues, and we've taken note every day. We're documenting it. We've sent them a notice of violation. In addition to the notice of violation, we've actually issued a citation. And then I believe I sent you over the weekend, we received a notice of violation from DEP, and we've sent that out to you as well. So we have DEP working on it, the township's working on it. They are putting in a tire washing station on site.
They haven't had that before?
They did not. They're putting it in now.
For such a large site?
Yeah.
They did not have a tire washing.
They did not. So they are putting that in now. That'll be up and operational, I believe, by Wednesday. And they are aware that we're watching literally every day, typically 3 times a day. Yeah.
Well, and I think not just watching, they've got to be documented, and they've got to be fined. I mean, if this were a private citizen and they were riding roughshod, they would be fined.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a large parcel and they don't seem to have control over it. I mean, it looks terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's our entrance, right? We say about how beautiful Newtown Square is, and you come down 252 and you see this awful construction site, or you drive down. I'm surprised that their homeowners aren't and their apartment dwellers are not upset with what goes on in Charles Ellis at that corner there, right behind their houses.
I can't disagree with you on that.
Well, let's just keep up the pressure.
Just so everybody kind of understands, we are documenting by photo every time that somebody's out there. I've asked all of that to be sent to Zach in our office. Anytime anybody's out, we take photos. I was out on Friday, I took photos. And so we send those over to Zach. He's putting them all together. And so that when we issue the citation, it's not an automatic fine. It's not like we issue the citation and we say it's $1,000 a day until you get it squared away. We have to actually go to court, and the judge has to actually say, this is the fine that they're being given for each day that this was the issue. But what we're doing right now is we're doing all that we can to build our case on that. And so that we will be able to, when we go to the court, we can do what we need to do.
Thank you for that explanation, because I was not aware of that,
Yeah.
that's what we have to do. So I think that's important that when we do bring up this issue again, so that the public who is, that you educate the public in that we are doing this, but we are limited in how we can find them. And that it has
And
to go
we've
through
looked,
court.
I believe that the board has asked us to look at potentially shutting down the project. We've looked at some of that. There are some legal concerns there as well. And so we're working through all of that to have the best avenue to deal with this, to do what we need to do to address these issues.
Yeah, I think it's important that anytime this comes up, that you have to explain that for anyone who's not, on a regular call
Yep.
or in a regular meeting, so they understand that we are just not sitting here tacit and, that we are doing what we are supposed to be doing and how we do that.
If DEP would move forward with their violation, they would have a lot more teeth.
Yes,
Than
I'm
we
I'm
do,
surprised about
and
that as
so-
well.
We are encouraging that on our end.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Neese? All right, seeing none, we're going to bounce back up to 9.2. So this is the appointment to the library board. Can I get a motion to appoint Thomas O'Donnell and Ariadne Cappuccio for 3-year terms each, expiring 12/31/2024?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second,
Motion was made by Supervisor Russo, seconded by Supervisor Robert Lycap to appoint Thomas O'Donnell and Ariadne Cappuccio to the library board for a 3-year term expiring 12/31/2024. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
aye.
All opposed, motion carries unanimously. Now we'll bump down to section 11.1, which is payments. 11.1, consider approving the $11,200 payment to Thomas J. Anderson and Associates for their 2021 pension plan consulting services. $5,700 will be paid out of the police pension fund. $5,500 will be paid out of the non-uniform pension fund.
So moved for approval.
Motion was made by Supervisor Russo, seconded by Supervisor Partridge. Is there any board discussion? Do you need to add anything, Mr. Neese?
No, just, I think you made the note that this is paid out of the pension funds themselves.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. 11.2, consider approving the $1,375 grading escrow release to Samantha Stetson at 3 Bridle Lane for completed work.
I'd like
So
to
moved for approval.
first.
Do you want to get into board discussion first, or do you want to?
All right, that's fine. I'll second it, but I want to ask Eileen.
The motion was made by Supervisor Partridge, seconded by Supervisor Russo, and then we'll go into board discussion. Supervisor Russo, you are recognized.
Eileen, have you been to this site, or has Gianna been to this site? What is this work? This is a pretty substantial amount of money, $1,300.
The new method of submitting escrows, they post $1,500 or $2,000, depending on the type of work that's proposed, and are responsible to pay our invoices as they go in addition, so that theoretically, the full amount would be there of the posting. But as it gets closer to the finish, sometimes they say, they're done, so they
Do we
let
know what
us
kind
know.
of project this was?
I can look it up, but I don't have it off the top of my head. I know.
So then you're saying it was either $700 or $200
No,
basically spent?
no, it would have been $1,500 or $2,000 that was initially submitted. And then for our review of the plans, we generate an invoice. When we inspect, we generate invoices, and they get sent to the applicant, and they have to pay those so that that original escrow stays intact for the most part, so that we're sure we're not going to run short on something.
Right, but is this escrow going back to the applicant or going to you?
Going to the applicant.
So then I'd like to know what kind of project it was.
I will-
Yeah, while
Okay.
Eileen's looking that up, if she can right now, let me
I
kind of
can.
explain. So if you go do a project, we ask you to pay $1,500 up front.
Right,
And when you pay the $1,500, let's say the first month, Eileen's Stantec's bill is $500.
right.
We bill them $500. We bill the
Against the
property
escrow.
owner, and they write us a check for another $500. So we still have $1,500.
Oh, okay.
annually.
I
And
see.
then we do that throughout the project
Until it gets to the end.
until we get real near the end. And then as we get near the end, we start using what's in the,
Oh,
in the
okay. I
escrow
gotcha.
up. And in some cases, some people are really good about paying everything along. And then every once in a while, you have one that's really bad and we get down to, you know, where we have to make a decision. Do we continue to do the work or do we stop the work because there's no longer enough money in the escrow? But the idea is that the escrow is always replenished
Okay,
and that we would then write them a check, hopefully close to the full amount. Or like I said, like Eileen says, if we get down to the last month or two and we
I
say,
see. All right. Well,
We're
that's,
done.
that makes sense then. Okay.
You good to?
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Any questions, Supervisor Robinson?
Project was,
You good, Tina?
it involved the construction of a swimming pool and a deck in the rear yard.
Is this the property that backs up to Episcopal?
Excuse me.
You think about this.
Right along.
Barrier blocks, I can't even talk.
All right, then that's fine.
Yeah.
I'm okay.
Yep. Any other board discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those
Aye.
opposed, motion carries. 11.3, consider approving the $47.75 grading escrow release payment to Melanie Lemke at 110 Beechwood Road for completed work.
So moved.
Second.
Motion was made by Supervisor Partridge, seconded by Supervisor Rosso. Is there any board discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. 11.4, consider approving the $443.75 grading escrow release payment to Jerry P. Rasco at 19 Dunmanning Road for completed work.
So moved.
Second.
Motion was made by Supervisor Partridge, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lakecap to consider, to approve the $443.75 to Jerry P. Roscoe. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. Section 12, bills. Since I reviewed the bills, I will make the motion to approve the 2021 bills on check registry A dated January 24th, 2022, totaling $221,290.82.
Second.
Motion was made by the chair, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lakecap. Is there any board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. 12.2, I will make the motion to consider, I will make the motion to approve 2022 bills on check register A dated January 24th, 2022, totaling $200,894.96.
Second.
Motion was made by the chair, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lakecap. All those in favor, is there any board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. 12.13, I will make the motion to approve the 2021 EFT bills on EFT register A dated January 24th, 2022, totaling $618.30.
Second.
Motion was made by the chair, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lakecap. Is there any board discussion?
Mr. Chair, before you vote, I just wanted to make note that this is kind of new. You've always agreed that we could pay utility bills and things like that as we were going along. We've started doing that through electronic funds because of some of the challenges with the mail. We were continually getting late fees. So this is going to hopefully help eliminate that. So you're going to start seeing this EFT register more often. I just wanted you to know what it was. It's actually electronic funds transfer. We're not doing anything that we wouldn't normally do with a check, but we're doing that to eliminate the problems that we've been having with late fees because of the checks being, either the bill being late coming to us or the check being late getting to them because of the mail.
Perfect. Any other board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. Section 13, new business. 13.1, consider accepting the resignation of Kelly DeLong from the Marple Newtown Joint Rec and Leisure Services Board.
So moved.
Second.
Motion was made by Supervisor Partridge, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lakecap to accept the resignation of Kelly DeLong from the Leisure Services Board. Is there any board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those approved, all those opposed, the ayes have it. 13.2, consider approving the advertisement of the open board position on the Marlboro Newtown Joint Rec and Leisure Services Board, which will expire 12/31/2022.
So moved.
second,
Motion was made by Supervisor Russo and seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap to approve the advertisement of the open board position in the Marlboro Newtown Joint Rec and Leisure Services Board, created by the vacancy of Kelly DeLong. Is there any board discussion?
I just wanted to confirm that the board's intent for us to do this advertising is not to do it in the paper, but to do it on the website and to do it in the on social media. Is that correct?
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. I actually had it noted for when we get down to the rail trail committee. There is, from speaking to the solicitor and Mr. Catania, who's on the call, can confirm this just in case anyone has any questions. There's no legal requirement for us to publish advertisements in the paper for board and commissions. We have done both that as well as on social media and on the website. That starts to add up, as we all know. Advertising in the newspaper is not cheap. And it seems that the vast majority, if not all of our appointments, these boards and commissions come from the township website, the township website email blast, and through social media. So I just think it's prudent, if anybody has any objections, that we kind of try to save some money and go that way.
Agreed.
So that is you're correct on that, Mr. Neese.
I just wanted to make sure that that was clear.
All right, any other board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
aye,
Opposed, motion carries. 13.3, consider authorizing the staff to bring in temporary snow help at a cost of $26.45 per hour.
so move for approval,
Second.
Motion was made by Supervisor Partridge, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap. Mr. Nisa, I don't know if you want to add something to this.
I would just make note that, in the past, we've always tried to supplement from time to time our public works staff, particularly for large snowstorms, with one or two people to help do that. In the additional challenge we've had this year is as we've been hit with snowstorms, we've also been hit with staff members who have been out for illness. And so we're really needing to do that to make sure it is a CDL position that we bring somebody in because they're driving typically a larger dump truck. So we have some folks that we would like to bring in, but we just need that approval.
The only question I have is just to ensure we're going to be having a pool of individuals, not just.
We're going to look
necessarily-
for a pool of
Got it.
individuals, yes.
For the exact reason that you said. I mean, in the combination of COVID and then also the fact that, people want to, I think we would get more complaints if the roads weren't done. I just want to make sure that we have a large pool to pull from on that.
Yeah.
Any other board discussion? All those in favor of authorizing the staff to bring in temporary snow help at a cost of $26.45 per hour signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All
aye,
opposed, motion carries unanimously. 13.4, discuss and consider the next action step items for Greer Park. Mr. Neese. I believe there's a presentation with this, correct?
I don't recall a presentation on this one, but I'm checking just to make sure. No, there's not a presentation on this one. There's a presentation on further down. Here's where we are with this. So as I think you may be aware, we've received two grants related to this project, the Greer Park project. We received one for $277,000. I'm sorry. We received one for 200. Said that right, 277,000. I said it right the first time. Related to the redoing the water feature or the pond. We received another 200,000 for doing the boardwalk. We had asked for 250 for that. And then we also had put in from Fish and Wildlife for a grant for roughly about the same amount of money, about $250,000, $260,000 to do that project, to do the stream restoration. Until we do the stream restoration, the other two are kind of out of order. And so what we are looking at is kind of trying to make sure that we understand what the board's pleasure is in where we move forward. We have talked with the Parks Committee. They understand kind of what the challenge is. Wade did a really nice job of putting some stuff together in regards to some expenses that were related to the project. And so we had a phase 1, a phase 2, and a phase 3 as part of the plan. What we're thinking is that we might want to divide the project into a phase 1A and a phase 1B to try to tackle it. So phase 1 is roughly about $1 million, $1.1 million, $1.2 million to complete the project. And we've basically got funding of about $450,000 to $500,000, right? So that leaves a pretty big gap that the township would be responsible for everything for.
And I'm sorry to interrupt, but just can you quickly just explain what the phase 1 entails at $1 million?
Yeah, so the phase 1 involved the redoing of the stream and rebanking of all that. That's a pretty big project. And that allows the stream that comes down, I believe it's Fox's Run, to come down, and it would go flow through the property and basically bypass what will be the new pond, which will be the current pond made smaller. It'll be more like a small fishing hole that would be available there on the property. So this would go around, the stream would go around that, coming into the park a little more, and then going back out and going down and picking up the current stream bed area. And so that's a big piece of that project. In addition, there was actually creating the new pond and doing that and getting it set and putting in a riparian buffer around it to help keep the geese down. And then the second piece, or the third piece, was this boardwalk, and that would allow, it's kind of like a pier to be able to walk, didn't go out into the water, but right along the edge of the water on the one side. In addition, there was some trail pieces put in. There were 2 crossings across the stream, one on each side of where the water feature is, and some other cleanup and some minor leveling of that front section of the park. That's hard to believe, but that's $1 million.
A lot of earth moving.
A lot of earth moving. It's just very expensive kind of stuff. I don't think you don't necessarily feel like you're seeing a whole lot, but there's a lot being done to make that happen. Now I would make mention that the intent of the stream restoration, part of that we're using towards our MS4 project that we have the 5 years to complete. So we really do want to move forward with this. So one option that we have is both of these grants are for multiple years that we have. We have, I think, 3 years to complete everything and do everything. We could apply again to Fish and Wildlife and see if we could get that grant again and rewrite our grant a little bit and make it a little bit more juicy. And we think there's some things that we could put in there that would help do that, and then kind of hold back until we heard from them and then move forward. The second option would be is for me to approach the grant holders or the grantors and ask them if they would allow us to change the part of the project that their money was used for. And so would they allow us to take and use it to do the stream restoration now? And that may or may not be optional. Then sometimes they would let you do that, sometimes they won't. But if we sold it as part of the park and why it was important, we would do that. We could do that. So what we would do is we would focus on, we would try to focus on those 3 front pieces, just those, not spend a lot of emphasis on the stream crossings right now and the trails, but get that stream in potentially get the pond like it's going to be in, and get that all done. And then, because obviously there's also engineering in that part of the thing. We also have some money that the township has put aside for the purpose of the dam. We were either going to replace it or repair it. I should say replace it or remove it. So we have some money that we could put into the project for that and try to make it about 700,000 between those and do that. So, or like I said, we can go back and try to get the Fish and Wildlife grant. What I do know is Fish and Wildlife won't give us money to put in a pier. They won't give us money to put in a pond, but they would probably give us the money to do the stream. And so we're just needing some guidance and direction from the board, understanding that we're going to go see what the grantors would allow and do that, but we just wanted some input from you before we move forward.
Steve, I thought we already at last meeting agreed that you should go and see if we can use the pond and boardwalk grants for the stream restoration. I thought we already directed to make
I
that.
apologize. I've been talking about this project in multiple meetings. If I did, I apologize. So
Yeah, I don't know if the other board members remember, but I thought we already had that direction. So if that's the direction, I think that would be the next step.
okay.
But verify with my fellow board members. Do you guys remember already agreeing to that?
I remember discussing this a while back, but I didn't know what the decision was.
I think it
I
was,
think we said
I
to
thought you
go
were gonna
back
look
to
into,
the
I think,
committee.
yeah, I think you were gonna look into it, but that was all I know.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
you were gonna maybe see if there was a way to maybe whoever gave us the grant, if there was a way to move it around.
Okay.
right, exactly. And then if that doesn't work, then we can pursue the other grant.
Okay.
Right.
Yep.
I think that would be the logical steps.
Okay.
So the one that gave us the grant, if we explain that, that the stream restoration has to happen before the balance, it's kind of out of sync, maybe then they would. I mean, I think that's the ask.
Yep.
Saying
Exactly.
we appreciate the money and this is the way we have to do it in order to move this project forward. Doesn't hurt to ask.
Yep. I will
Right.
do that.
Sounds good.
Any other board discussion? All right, perfect. Let's move down to 13.5. Consider approving a rail trail feasibility study committee. Mr. Neese.
So if you recall, we've gotten a grant to do the feasibility study for the rail trail. The rail trail, just as a reminder, was intended to go basically from Greer Park, actually 252, down to Brookside Park. There is a rail bed that is currently owned by Pico, and it runs kind of back along that area between the two parks, and a lot of it's has foliage that's in the summertime grows up over all of that area. It would be kind of opening that up, putting in a trail and doing that. So one thing we need to do is put together a committee that would come together and work on this. It seems to me that a recommendation from staff would be that we would get a person from probably your Trails and Greenways Committee, a person from your Parks and Rec Committee, because you're connecting two parks, and then potentially 3 members that are kind of in the area that would be impacted in this. And then I would see probably a board member or 2 serving with this committee, and then staff-wise, probably both George and I would at least be serving that way as assistance in helping and getting it started. The next item actually talks about putting the RFP together. Probably need to kind of get that started from a staff perspective, but I just wanted to say that we really need to get the committee going, get the process started, and get moving forward.
Yeah, and so the township manager, Ms. Reese and I had discussed this a little bit today. I know I spoke to other board members as well. So it looks like the number is going to be five people, one from Parks and Rec, one from the Trails and Greenways, and then 3 other individuals, ideally all of them who have
Neighbors.
property that abut to where that trail is going to be. We are also going to be looking, as we have done with the Greer Park study, looking for individuals that we know who are against the trail, because that will just be able to foster a much better product at the end of the day when we kind of work everything out. The thing to remember in this, and the supervisor will be Supervisor Chanlis, since she is new. I figured it would be a good one for her to get involved in. The thing just for the public to remember is that this is purely just a feasibility study. There will not be any asphalt being laid in the next 6 months or even the next year. This is just to see whether it is feasible for the township on multiple levels to proceed with putting a trail in there. And the RFP, I believe, the draft RFP that staff is going to be putting together calls for whoever the consultant is to have 70 hours of essentially community interaction, meetings with those neighbors who abut that property. So this is going to be a very intensive feasibility study because, you know, we understand that this will go up to people's properties. And as we have seen in other municipalities and here, that everybody wants trails until it's near their house. And then it's a whole different ballgame. But it'll be a good board, I'm hoping. The goal, so that everybody knows, I think, is to have the members appointed very romantic. Our next meeting is February 14th. So that we should also probably have I didn't think of this, an agenda item to do and advertise. Well, we're doing the approval here, so I think that's good to advertise it as well. I think it kind of loops in there for us to be looking for 3 individuals. And then we'll do what we have done in the past, which is interview and appoint people to there. So that's the only thing I wanted to add there. I don't know if there's any other board discussion. And I don't even think we teed this up properly. So can we get a motion to consider approving a rail trail feasibility study committee?
So moved.
Second.
Motion was made by Supervisor Russo, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap. I know that all those comments I just said would fall into normal board discussion. I don't know if any other board members have anything that they would like to discuss. I don't know if it's appropriate for this motion or the next one, while it'll be for the next one. So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. 13.6, consider authorizing the staff to send out an RFP for a rail trail feasibility consultant.
So moved.
I know that the township manager has just kind of commented on the process of this. I do just want to note that this RFP will not be sent out until the the rail trail feasibility study is able to provide input on it, and
Makes
then
sense.
it'll push it out. So they're going to get all that groundwork started.
So they would be, I'm sorry to interrupt, they'll be part of the
Bingo.
RFP.
Yep.
They'll help write that RFP.
The staff's going to start the bulk of it.
Mhm.
Then once that committee gets together, they're going to get in there and add whatever they want to add.
Right, because it makes sense, because they're the ones who are gonna have to have the information, what they need to see. Makes sense.
And if it's acceptable with the board, as soon as they've done that, we'll go ahead and send it out and not come back before the board again. So that's the assumption that we're making, and I just want to be clear so that there's not any questions down.
I think that's fair. Just give us an update on your manager's report.
Yep.
So a motion was made by Supervisor Partridge. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap. Is there any other additional board discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of authorizing the staff to send out an RFP for a rail trail feasibility consultant signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. 13.7, consider authorizing the township solicitor and staff to take the necessary steps to pursue the purchase of properties within the township.
So moved.
Second.
Motion was made by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap, seconded by Supervisor Partridge, to consider, to authorize the township solicitor and staff to take the necessary steps to purchase properties within the township. Is there any other board discussion? Mr. Neese, would you like to add anything?
I would not.
Sounds good. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. 13.8, the stormwater discussion. Ms. Nelson.
Well, it's going to be kind of both of us. We're going to tag
We'll
team
tag
this.
team a little
But,
bit.
and I'm also, before I do.
I could lay the groundwork as to the process we've undergone.
Yeah, if you
so
want
far.
to do that
Okay.
while I start pulling this up.
We started with Stephen, George, Harry Robinson, and I in a room with a bunch of maps, trying to pick everyone's brain as to what's been reported, what's been known by staff all along, things that, have crept up. And we opted to categorize basically in 4 different ways the drainage complaints that we've received. We, as the lowest one, had property owner issue that we believe is, pretty much solely with them. Wanted to acknowledge them, but don't believe that there is township responsibility there or township action required. We have capacity and condition issues. Those would be like a culvert that's in horrible repair. If you remember in 2013, we did some work on the Hansel Road culvert because sinkholes were forming, flow was going around the end walls. There was just the age of the pipe started to really show itself. So those types of things that would, if not left unaddressed, impact more of the roads, the traveling public, things like that. So that was another category. And then we had flooding as one, and stream erosion, which is something that everybody talks about now, the incising of streams, basically. So they're the 4 categories. Stephen has the map up now.
Just before you transition, I just wanted to remind everyone that this was also part of a survey that the township and Eileen worked with the community and asked that
That
we put
was-
up, that was separate? Is this
Well, it's
separate?
incorporated here, and I'll explain that when we get
Okay.
there. When we did the 2 outreach for both the Heights and the Upper St. Albans areas, we actually did submit surveys to
Okay.
everyone in those neighborhoods to try and get a feel for what the issues were. And in that case, we did a mapping that was slightly different in that we reported people that responded but said they had no issue, people that reported structure damage from the lack of storm sewers or the capacity, and then just yard damage. So we had 3 categories there. And what we've done here is eliminate the one where they responded to the survey and didn't have an issue, but just categorized them as capacity issues.
So you did incorporate that
We
into
did,
this?
we
Okay.
did. We
Just
wanted to make it
so
holistic.
that everyone
Yes.
understands that if
Yep.
you did have if you did answer that survey and and of course, if you answered that you didn't have a problem, you're
Right, it
not
won't be
part of
right,
it, but if you did, that you did answer the survey with a concern that it's included
It's
in
on it,
this.
yes.
Okay, just so that it's a whole document.
This
with
is
lots of
township
different
wide.
input.
We took the 9 sheets that we have, that we've already mapped storm sewers on, and decided that would be the best because it does show parcels and we could identify who did the complaint.
Yep, I think it's just important that everyone understands that this is a
Rolling
whole
it all up.
document that
Yep.
keeps building.
Yep.
Okay, thank you, Eileen.
No problem. So following that meeting, we got together and decided to try and rank the issues that we saw as good as possible, knowing that everybody believes theirs is the worst problem. But we had to look at, are we going to lose a road? Are we going to, have greater damage for not addressing them? So I'll let Stephen chime in a little bit here now too.
So a couple quick things before we move forward. And this is kind of near the end of our agenda, and we can spend as much time on this as the board wishes. We can go through and talk through what each one is and how we evaluated it, or we can kind of review just the top ones. I just want to make sure, we want to give you all that you want to know. We don't want to shortcut it, but at the same time, I don't want to go into something and you all look at me and go, well, that was a waste of our time. So I just want to be wise in how we move forward. And we'll give you as much detail, like I said, as you want. We're prepared to do that. What we are looking for out of this, from the memo that was sent to you along with this, is we're looking for some direction. One, to make sure that the ranking of the 1 to 15 that we put together, you are okay with. And then 2, we are looking for some direction. The first one that we have is a project that we've ranked as high. If you agree with that one, we're looking for a little bit of direction that it's okay for us to move forward, getting everything together, getting engineering and all of that in play. But so those are some things we're going to look at the end, at the end of this. I just didn't know if you want us to go through all 9 maps and talk about each different piece before we go through and rank them with you, or whether you're okay with us jumping right to the spreadsheet that ranks them and we can talk about it from there. I just
Yeah.
want to be fair to you, what you're looking for.
This is just me, and I can be completely overridden. What I would think is if we can do sort of, not a long analysis on each sheet, go over each sheet, because I believe there's probably individuals from the public who are also on here via Zoom. Let's ensure that not only the board is given the overview, but they're given the overview, because just in case they have follow-up questions or public comment that they want to add
Okay.
as it relates to this as well. I think that's probably the best way to handle it. I don't know what the rest of the board thinks. But seeing no objection, I would suspect that's probably the best way to go.
We'll keep it moving. If you start to feel like it's dragging along, let us know. Okay.
Can you show us the ranking before you go into each sheet? Do you have a list of them? Can we
do.
look at can we look at that first? Just look at it and then,
I can, just give me a second. I'm having a little bit trouble. I had to disconnect my mouse. So,
I don't have a copy. Oh, I do have that list. Yeah, but I didn't know if you want a hard copy of it. Got it.
so if I can, I want to talk real quickly about how we rank them. Any trouble?
I didn't see a list of 15 on.
I'm noticing that. Did it not come over?
Yeah, I was a little confused.
Yeah, I didn't see a list of 15 either.
Ah. It did not pull all 3 pages. Okay, hold on a second. Let me go find it and pull it up so that we can look at that list. While I'm doing that, Eileen, if you would real quick talk about, or George, talk about, first of all, the 4 ranking areas that we looked at. And you mentioned briefly that, but how we looked at whether it was road or stream erosion, flooding, infrastructure, or capacity issues, or an individual homeowner's responsibility. And then
Before we do that, can we just get a little definition on this nomenclature on the right? It says township system capacity.
Let's go with the maps first. Let's go with the maps, Steve.
I just want to understand the nomenclature, because
No, I
there's
hear you.
stuff on here. And I know certain areas on this map, and I'm questioning why they're on this map as a capacity /
condition issue.
yeah.
If you want
So
just
So why don't you,
Condition to
why don't you explain that? Let him explain, let Eileen explain that while I really quick pull up the other list so I can make sure I know where it is.
Because I think we need to understand.
Well, if he's talking about the maps, I think we should have the maps up.
I'm just saying in general, I like to understand the criteria
I hear you.
just before we start talking about this stuff. So, because I mean, you have red, you have green, you have yellow, and you have blue.
The
I assume
green,
blue is
the
the,
green are and there's cross hatching.
I noticed, thank you.
The green was somewhat lumped together as capacity or condition issue where, let's say, the Upper St. Albans area There's some storm sewers there, but there's certainly not enough storm sewers there, or they're not properly sized.
Okay.
So that's one of the capacity condition issues. Any of the green properties in there were
You
the
pull the
ones
maps
that
up, Steve?
responded,
I will just a second.
were the ones that responded saying that they had yard or structure damage. But they're the ones that are in green for those neighborhoods. That would be in the Heights and in Upper St. Albans. Then you have stream or roadside erosion, all of Boot Road, almost, with the exception of a tiny little bit of between Westchester Pike and Phillips, is severely eroding the edges of the road. So that was one George was adamant about. He said, we just paved it and now we're going to lose it if we don't do something to. take
Are
care
you
of
talking
it."
down by the bridge?
It's almost the entire length. You have that section on this mapping that is up on the screen right now. You have the blue as the roadside erosion. It goes down to the intersection with Goshen, which shows flooding.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then that meets Lewis Run. It goes all the way through Echo Valley and it.
Well, I
branches
guess the
off.
question, I have a question on that one, like, that's accumulation of two different points, right?
There is, yes, Lewis Run and actually two tributaries of Lewis.
Yeah, they meet there.
Mhm.
So, okay, so we have the bridge, it's obviously got a $250,000 problem, or $125,000, whatever it is. So you have problems over there. But again, it's widening the road by erosion? Is that what you're saying?
The Boot Road issue is that the edges of the road off the paved surface is starting to wash out so badly. They're filling, I say that, Public Works is going and filling in with stone. When they see a washout, that stone is then leaving with the next rain event.
Are they putting riprap there, or were they putting there?
He said he was using large stone. I didn't get the exact size, but George knew that the
It's-
smaller stuff was just gonna,
It's usually about like this size.
Yeah, we might need bigger.
I think the idea there is that we need some collection system and discharge to the creek before it accumulates down that tunnel, basically, that is,
So you're saying widen something up to store water?
no, install storm sewers.
Because there's storm sewers on Boot.
There's none on the entire length of road with the exception of one discharge at Phillips Lane. From Phillips Lane.
Does that go through somebody's yard to behind?
It goes into the road edge.
I'll let you continue. I'm
Okay, I don't have control of the,
and Hunter's Run, is that how old is that development?
I've seen things go back to the mid-70s.
Well, I noticed when I was out there this summer, there's a lot of new catch basins that were installed there, I guess, as part of the road program.
No, they were in from the original
No,
construction.
there's definitely some new ones in that road.
No, we didn't do any new ones.
We didn't do any new
No, we
ones?
repaired some.
Well, maybe the tops
So
were
the tops
replaced.
look different. Yes, we did repair them.
So-
Anytime we do a road program, we make sure that the surface of the inlets and the boxes themselves are intact.
But when you go back that far, like 70, were the systems adequate then versus like Echo Valley, we have systems from the 50s.
Mhm.
Okay, and we do have, I guess, some catch basins, but
There's a few.
you say there's a bunch of constraints or wear issues,
Mhm.
but like in a development like over in St. Albans, there's nothing really, right? You got a few things.
No, the Upper St. Albans has a series of probably 15 to 20 inlets, mostly at low points, because obviously, even if there
So
weren't
it's all,
any
but
standards,
it's all based upon. Then you go to the Heights and you really have nothing.
Heights is pretty much nothing except for off to the Summit side. There is a little bit of a system there. I think because there was a stream that was being culverted, so that the road could be constructed, and they installed some storm sewers, but very limited.
Let's have her go through the maps.
Yeah,
Jump
okay.
on it. Good.
I'm just thinking out loud.
No, it's fine.
I'm just trying to get like, because I noticed when I was walking in the '70s neighborhoods, a lot more storm, I don't know, collection points forever in that development there are in mine. But then you go to someplace where he is, and there's nothing.
And I think that's also indicative of that, those developments were done at one time. I think the Heights especially was a subdivision with the 20-foot wide lots and no improvements associated with it at all immediately. And then dribs and drabs as it went along, so that it was just the next section, you know, the street would be extended maybe just as a driveway, especially when nobody wanted to put the money in to get that section dedicated. They didn't want it to be to township standards. And I think that's older.
I guess the question is, in an area like that, you have to figure out how you can help them. Because unless those folks want to
Yeah.
get enough people to dedicate it, right?
Well, I
You got to
think that-
put some kind of way to at least
that's
get some of the
part-
I think that's
water.
what tonight we're gonna start
That's
hearing
part
some
of
of
the
that. So,
decision making that needs to be done to
I
know
think
how
there's
to.
going to be alternates for each area, because I think
Yeah.
if you,
Well-
it's one thing to improve a system that's existing, but if there's no system at all, and people don't want to improve the curbs and the property to get the water to these points,
Then you're
you
spinning
got to figure
wheels.
something
Yep.
else out. You may be able to mitigate less of a problem, but maybe you can help them do something,
Mhm.
whatever that is.
so let's go over the maps.
Okay. In this first map, the two red properties are associated with the Hunt Valley development. One is Mr. Koenig, the top uppermost one, has had concerns with the stream corridor through his property continuing to erode and starting to impact his structure. He's very concerned. One of the reasons we had this as a property owner issue is that there has been no change whatsoever in this drainage area. I mean, if we had something that we could point to and say somebody might have done something to cause a change, or, you know, there's been development that has taken place, there may be something that the township could do. But in these two instances, there's a little, I want to say flag lot back behind Echo Valley and Hunt Valley that a resident during the, I believe, the Stony Knoll development review came forward and said that they had an issue in addition to pointing out that valley with the stream corridor that's exhibiting some erosion.
Eileen,
Mhm.
if you have a house, there's a lot of houses in Newtown Square that are on a creek, on a stream, whatever you want to call it, brook,
Mhm.
whatever you call it. And you as a homeowner, your responsibility to keep the water so it flows, right? Because the town
Yes.
doesn't go out and do this. So me, if a tree falls in my creek, I go there and I take it out and make sure the water can flow, because that's how a lot of this stuff happens.
And you're
Stuff
not
gets in the
supposed to
way.
be putting bridges and things as obstructions, but everybody
And
does
I mean,
that
if you wanna-
too.
Yeah, and exactly,
So
exactly.
there are little things
Right.
like that that do accumulate.
I'm
And
not saying that's what happened to these two homes, but what I'm saying is at some point, like, they tell you, and you go to these water or these associations, they always tell you, keep the streams clean and free, not only of debris and trash, but like if trees fall in it, branches, you know, because that stuff then changes the flow in a big storm,
it definitely does.
and then you could have erosion.
Yes. And there's also a lot of anecdotal information about trying to keep taller grasses or, you know, not a manicured lawn straight up to the edge of the stream, because the root system of taller plants and trees and things will help maintain that bank so it won't erode and wash out. So
Well,
there's,
maybe we give people some kind of
we do have
thing they
that
can,
on
oh,
our
we do, plant.
on our stormwater website. There's links to all kinds of EPA and DEP articles to try and keep people informed about what they can do themselves.
And there were handouts when we were doing the native plants.
Mhm.
There
Yeah.
were handouts on
Remember
how
those,
you
yeah.
can, right, because there was, I think it's DEP has the handouts, and it was actually suggested that, people whose houses are along a stream bed or a creek, that we put those in their mailboxes
Mhm.
and share that information. Because the native plants and things of that nature. So EAC, I know, has been talking about that. So maybe that's a suggestion just for the information. Because MS4, we get credit for giving out information as well.
It is
and-
the
Or it's one of the requirements.
first minimum control measure, public
Yeah.
participation and.
I mean,
education.
it's not just to tick off a
No,
box.
no.
It's also,
important.
people don't know.
Well, I think,
The,
yeah,
the,
yeah.
the fact of the matter is that the township itself cannot solve these issues completely alone.
Yeah,
You're never gonna catch up for all the damage that's been done for years and years and years, unless it is a concerted effort from everyone,
Mhm.
you know.
We affect our
bootstrap it up.
neighbors. We
Yep.
affect ourselves and we affect our neighbors and everyone's got to
Absolutely.
be aware of that.
Absolutely. So if I further on the map, that condition issue, we have almost every one of the culverts has something to be addressed with it through the Echo Valley development. They are beautiful old stone head walls that are basically off the road somewhat, but concrete pipe, we have circumstances and there are photos that we can get to later if you want to take a look at them. Some of the wing walls are at this point scoured so badly they're not fully supported. There's water going around the pipes in a couple instances, so we have serious concerns that the roads could go if we don't do something to button those up. As I mentioned, the Hansel one that we did back in 2013 took about $30,000. We know that's way low based on today's astronomical prices, but we're looking at, I believe, the 6 crossings working out to be somewhere in the vicinity, a very rough preliminary estimate of about $300,000 to get
So
repaired.
let me ask you this question. Why were they not looked at, or maybe they were, why weren't they looked at the same time that they did the road program?
Because they're off the roads.
Yeah, well, what I'm getting at, and I'm not an engineer,
Mhm.
but I would suspect, and I could be completely wrong, caveat that when you're going to replace this, do you then have to cut open that section of roadway? or
We're
are you
not
doing it-
talking about replacing here. We're talking about repairs.
Oh, okay.
And what we did with Hansel, it's called cementitious lining. You basically inject grout so that it
Okay,
saves, you pump around. That's one part of the operation. You have to coffer dam the stream, pump it around so that your work area is dry, and you make the repairs that you need to. We're not talking about full replacement. Full replacement would probably be more in the $1.2 million range.
It would
if
be
were
like we
gonna
just
do
did
that.
over here,
got it.
Yes.
Oh,
just
yeah,
did across
good
the
point.
street,
Yeah,
Talking about Clearbrook?
which is the one right over here.
Actually, they were replacements.
That was a
They were,
replacement.
they were twin 30-inch pipes that we replaced.
And that was smaller than these are a lot bigger.
Oh, these are, yeah, these are a
So
lot,
I
much
mean,
bigger.
but
Yeah,
it'd be
the
on the order
30
of magnitude more, whatever the size is, right?
Those 30-inch pipes were the corrugated metal ones that completely deteriorated and weren't supporting the road anymore. That
Got
was, that was why they needed to be replaced. And the Poplar Road culvert that was about a year before that was also the condition of the CMP, corrugated metal pipe, had basically oxidized so badly that it was gone, the bottom of it, and it collapsed.
got it. All right.
So we're looking, and George wholeheartedly agreed that the culverts in Echo Valley are one of the highest priorities. We all ranked at number 1. If we can move on to the next sheet. In this particular sheet, there is one property owner at 606 North Newtown Street Road, I think it is, that contacted our office again. They have a driveway which contains a culvert and a stream that runs across the frontage of their property. They were concerned that it appears there's more water in it. When this particular complaint was received, we did a search of even just permit applications to see if anything had changed, precipitated more water going there, no pun intended, and could not find anything. So this was categorized as a property owner issue.
So the culvert is on their property.
It is. It is not part of the road system. It is all
There's quite a few of those along that area.
a lot. I mean, a lot of Newtown has them. I
Yeah.
mean, even when you go through Echo Valley, you can see after the discharge off of Echo Valley Lane, before it gets to Crum Creek, you can see the 4 or 5 driveways that have pretty nice overage.
Bryn Mawr Avenue,
Mhm.
those
Bremore has
houses.
a lot of
yeah.
those too, yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep. Because of all the water, the little tributaries that run
Yeah.
along.
Well, because the roads would follow the
Mhm.
stream, so
Mhm.
that's how
Mhm.
we have that, so.
The blue is Glendale up at the top there. That would be what we would categorize as roadside erosion. We are working on the first phase of that, and the low volume road is, as we've found, a good opportunity to get grant money. And we said as soon as we completed that project, we'd look to the next one. So that would be a prime candidate. The flooding there, the yellow, a resident pointed out that they thought all the work that was being done up on Golf Club Road, because a lot of people came in and tore down houses,
Mhm.
put up larger. They thought that it was their doing that they had, but this area is low-lying. We believe that the stream erosion and the culvert under Andover at the intersection of Glendale could conceivably, if addressed, help the flooding problem that she has there. You'll notice that even though we have a little green area at the corner of St. David's and Andover, there's an S in the middle of it because we're saying that's a state issue. St. David's Road drainage, years ago, George indicated that the state came in and put an asphalt berm off the road to direct water to the inlet that's at the corner there, and that has deteriorated badly. So the property owner has contacted the township, and we've been speaking with the state about it. There are quite a few state issues. One that is right across from the northernmost entrance to Lissitor. There is ponding there,
Talking about right where it gets on to,
just about at the split.
Bridge, you mean?
over there.
Right past this
On
one.
252,
On 252.
Oh,
on 252,
I
right
thought you
up.
meant at the light.
No,
So then,
Not on Sawmill, that's on a
so then
different
let me
sheet.
ask you a question then. So if this is a state issue, does the state have their own people that go out and fix these things, or they have to bid it all out and
typically Bortondale has crews that can address certain things depending on, how complex they are.
right.
I would think these two are something that Bortondale could handle easily. They've been out numerous times to deal with inlets along Bishop Hollow, when they started collapsing, because they're responsible for state highway infrastructure.
So we just got to get on their list.
And as we go through these, one of the things that we have is the list of state projects that we think, the ones that we viewed as state, and then kind of an order that we want to attack them with the state. We want them all done.
It can't hurt to start getting a list with them.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and that's the
You
idea.
just start getting whittled down. It's that many less you had in the beginning.
Yep, that's the goal.
And in another lifetime, probably close to 20 years ago, they used to have what they called a co-op program, where they would join forces with a municipality to split the cost to get something addressed that was a little more far reaching than just a ponding issue on 252, but still in cooperation with, not, just we had to wait until they got their list together.
Imagine that, working together.
I know,
Wow.
it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
And we had projects that were really great there in Aston Township. Like I said, it was a lifetime ago. So I believe we've covered all on that sheet. If we jump to the next one, we have some roadside flooding and ponding issues up on Valley Forge Road, just off of Church.
I'm sorry, this is not cooperating.
Doesn't want to move for you. Some of these, you can see the dashed match line. Some of them overlap a little bit. I
Mhm.
won't go over those again. But again, the yellow ponding at St. David's Road and Millview, that is a state issue. We have a number of issues with if you're familiar with Paper Mill Road at all, the pond that is along the road on the left-hand side as you're heading toward the dead end. There's some erosion issues with that filling up, just a lot of complexity there with the property owner and apparently some issues with something coming off of an undeveloped portion of Aronimink on that one property on Paper Mill
So
Road
this
down to
person,
that culvert.
it's a privately owned pond.
The pond is on private property, correct? And it's someone who actually lives on Dunmanning that owns the property because it extends all the way to Paper Mill. They don't have access along that frontage. It just, their property is accessed through Dunmanning Road.
And so who's that? How's it affecting somebody? It's affecting somebody downstream?
I think it is just the whole conglomerate there is an issue that needs to be addressed.
I never grew up with ponds on private property where I grew up, but I've noticed a lot of times around here, people that have these ponds on private property, every 10 or 15 years, they actually hire a contractor to go out there and clean them out and do all the right thing and
To
fix
dredge
the
'em.
the little relief, I guess, a little dam relief.
Mhm.
And that was why I was so adamant about it. Listener, like I've never seen that done at Listener, but yet my neighbors that are a lot smaller ponds have done it. The big pond over on, further down the street over when you get to Radnor on the corner of, I guess that would be Darby Road, Darby Paley Road.
Oh, where we used to feed the ducks.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
whole pond was under construction or cleaned out. They took out tons and tons of sediment there for, it had to be under construction for 6-7 months. I mean, so these other folks are
Oh,
definitely,
Ravenswood.
and that's a private association.
Yeah, Ravenswood. Yeah.
That's a private neighborhood there. So all these private entities, like i.e. residents are cleaning these ponds out, yet it doesn't seem like these bigger ponds or some of these ponds, other people are maintaining. That's just from, I mean, I'm just seeing it like from
I'm not sure
50,000
which one you're
feet.
talking about.
Well, no, what I'm saying is, I
think
don't
he's
know, I don't know
commenting,
if
is
this is a
being
pond,
maintained by the
I don't know if this
property owner?
pond's being maintained or not.
Gotcha.
But I'm seeing these other folks, i.e. my neighbors in my neighborhood, I saw the ones in Radnor, they're actually get out there every so often and get the sediment and everything out. And I'm not thinking that's a cheap endeavor.
No, it's not. And it should be permitted too.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I
Dredging
just noticed my
permit.
one neighbor down on Partridge and Crum Creek did this a few years ago, but they have a specialty contractor comes, puts a coffer dam, does all the, and it takes a few weeks.
I think the thing on this one we're looking at, is there a contributing factor from Paper Mill Road to that? And that's one of the things we're making sure, because we would have responsibility if
If it's
we're
from the drainage of
contributing.
Paper Mill.
And so that's why it's this way
Okay.
now. And then once we evaluate it, we may determine that it becomes the property owners, but
And it could be
initially,
a hybrid.
it could be a
of the two.
hybrid, that we're responsible for part and they're responsible.
And you're saying Aronimink dumping water over there too?
That I'm not personally familiar with. I believe George brought that to the table and he said he knew it wasn't from golf course runoff because it's a wooded area that's untouched there, but there's some issue with it coming down to that culvert that crosses under Paper Mill.
Okay.
For that particular property.
George is more familiar. I don't know if George wants to say anything about that.
Yeah, this is George. In that particular instance, the main problem is the sediment that's coming off of Aronimink and the wooded area that's back there. The homeowner does maintain that pond. The problem is they dredge the pond and then it very, very quickly fills up, as does the pipes that run underneath Paper Mill because of all the sediment coming off of Aronimink. That's why it was identified.
How would you, is there a way to trap the sediment on the property before it comes down?
Could be, yeah.
And I would think they would have a wherewithal to fix this problem.
Especially because they're coming in with their master.
Well, not only
It
that,
can
but I
be part of
mean,
the master plan.
it- I mean, not only that, but if it's coming from them and that's a big piece of property, they should be able to fix that problem. It's not,
So that's,
and especially this person, if George just said, this person's already cleaned it out and did the right thing, then I don't have a problem.
Mhm. So next sheet. We received a complaint from a gentleman at the end of Phillips Lane.
Okay.
Again, there's lack of storm sewer there. I believe he actually did install something himself to be able to direct what drained down to the cul-de-sac, go beyond his house. He also pointed out there were a few applications that came in but never proceeded. He was concerned with them
Which house is
developing
he in, Phillips?
all the way at the end of the cul-de-sac.
The one on the right or one on the left?
If you're heading toward the cul-de-sac, that's on the right.
Well, yeah, because they came in a few years ago to build on that lot right next to him, to the right of him. I don't think anything was ever built there.
No, they didn't proceed with it. They
Because the whole
decided,
issue was, he, I don't know if it was him or one of his neighbors came out and said, listen, we have this problem to get down there. That this topography was very sharp. And I think the guy figured out it was gonna be super expensive to try to build that house.
Yeah, I know, they just-
Topography.
actually, we had a stormwater operations and maintenance agreement already executed and recorded, and we were like, okay, what do we do with this now? It didn't go forward.
So he has a water problem there?
He said that he had a problem that the end of the cul-de-sac had no storm sewer whatsoever. The only system in Phillips Lane is near Boot Road. You can see on the mapping if it gets enlarged a little bit, just
I
right
would
up
just
there.
think well, I don't know. I mean,
So he
how do
had,
you live on the end of a cul-de-sac? It's a low point. You don't have a way for the water to go.
it was, again, Phillips Lane was probably built.
Separate developers.
That house, I think the house I'm thinking about is built right in the 80s.
Yeah, and this was one where just the road was built. And the lots
Oh,
were
and the lots were
subdivided
sold
and
off,
not
right.
all the houses were built.
Okay.
And that's why there's still some in there that are available for development, but
Okay. Well,
they're difficult topographically. And
yeah, where he is very good. Well, he's got a nice lot, but the one to the right of him, it was gonna be like, be a billy goat to get there.
yes. Additionally, as I mentioned previously, the Boot Road roadside erosion. There is flooding that occurs at the intersection of Westchester Pike and Boot Road that we have dubbed a state issue. The one red parcel that's in the middle of the page, the complaint from a resident was partially resolved. Across their frontage, they installed curbing
Yeah, I saw
to
that.
get it to the driveway so that it would go beyond their house and wouldn't just rain down into their home or into their property
That
because it
solved the
sits
problem.
lower off the road. But they also have some concerns with runoff coming from SAP. So that's just one we want to keep on there.
Well, I guess the question, that house is up pretty high. Now, the guy that's in the little valley
There's
below
three
them,
there, yeah.
they're up pretty high. So it must be the way the water's running down the road was getting in his yard.
It was, yeah.
So you put some curb in. I think that's a good solution. Just take it upon yourself and just take.
Yeah,
care of
they
it.
wanted to do the rolled asphalt again, and unfortunately, we said, can't do that. So,
Yeah, but I mean, I think that'll last them longer than they're ever gonna be there.
yes,
And if that
Definitely
mitigates their
hold up there.
problem. Mitigates their problem, then so be it.
and there is the green areas in the heights that show that either we don't have enough storm sewers or the condition of them isn't very good. These were the survey results of people that had either yard damage or structure damage.
That's not the full heights. You're missing 2 streets on that.
Right, it's just where the mapping was.
So Eileen,
Yeah.
what could you possibly do there short term or? I mean, because they're all sporadic, right? Except for the one little grouping down on the bottom right. So what can we do there?
Well, this is one of the locations where we need direction because the roads themselves, in some cases,
Well, that's what
are
I'm saying.
only 20 feet wide.
Right.
there's the standard for any new subdivision work of 27 feet, but is 20 acceptable for a development of this type where,
But that being said, even if they get enough people on the street to improve the road, but in the short term, where are you gonna bring the water?
we are investigating open parcels that may be able to be utilized for surface stormwater,
Okay,
because it can't be infiltration. The only way we can do infiltration is if there's any lots that would become available in the better soil areas. Right now, the only things that have been available are down in the lower reaches with higher water tables.
that was my next question.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Higher
high
water
water table,
tables.
then what do you do with
So
the water?
you don't infiltrate, but at least you can store and meter it so that it doesn't,
Okay. So you guys are actively looking at that?
well, we,
Yes.
yeah, we
Okay.
have not concluded
I
anything.
mean, that's,
but
we're
yeah,
at least
that's-
moving forward
we are
to
thinking
to come
in
up with
terms
some
of
sort
what
of
to do, yes.
solutions. And we might be able to try to implement one and see if it works.
Can I just add something? Shouldn't there be two colors for state issues at the end of Ellis and at the end of College? Because I know that whenever it rains, and not even a bad rain, and the one by Ellis is a new culvert, that floods. And I could be proven wrong by someone who's lived in the neighborhood longer, but I don't think that started to occur until after they did the widening, to be honest with you. Right in front of the Goddard School, it'll flood. It'll hold water there.
It floods there?
It'll hold water right there at Ellis Avenue,
On Ellis.
on Ellis. Right where Ellis meets Westchester Pike, you'll see that culvert not moving water. And the same thing happens at the end of College and Westchester Pike. That holds water too.
And those are all new, right? Like new.
The College
recent?
one isn't. The Ellis Avenue one is.
We can always supplement the mapping. We didn't, they weren't areas that we came up with. So
We'll add those.
Yeah.
We'll have to figure out. Yeah.
And then with the, since this map, I mean, is there a space or a place on the website where, you know, because for instance, let's say I'm a resident of Pine Street and I'm having flooding, which I know that they are, right where that stream is, right? So Pine Street comes down, then it's a low point, and then it kind of levels off to get to Ellis Avenue. It floods there, and I know those people, like the Mats and whoever the other individuals are, get flooding at the end of.
Okay, we didn't get that information in the survey. That's.
Oh, you didn't?
No.
I saw their stuff in there. Okay.
And the other one that's not marked with any color, because we don't have a specific, but we know the whole area is the area over here. We all know it as Florida Park on the map. That's another area that we believe is going to require an entire neighborhood approach, not just a single. Won't be as simple as just a single fix in a certain piece.
Yeah, you
but-
can see from the
And just-
mapping, they actually have less sewers than the Heights.
And that's exactly what I was about to say. I mean, again, I know that we have stared at these for, I mean, Tina and Mike both do this for a living. For me, for, you know, the last years, but the residents watching this, I mean, if you circle that area of the Heights again, that black line is the only conveyance system in that entire neighborhood. And that is because of Act 167, right, which mandated stormwater management wasn't around at the time that the Heights was built, or excuse me, Florida Park, or any of these
Either
older
one,
neighborhoods.
yeah, most of the older ones, anything prior to 1978 would not have required stormwater. Anything that you got was because of the level of developer or just the forward thinking that they had. But most of it wasn't because they looked at a book and said, oh, I have to do this. You know, they didn't see in it as an ordinance requirement because there were no ordinances in that regard. You cared about
everything
getting
was a
things
sheet
off
flow.
of low points and trying to move it somewhere. You didn't care about where it went after it
As long as
left
it's
your
off
site.
your property.
All
It was
sheet
off
flow.
your- And then even the evolution of stormwater management itself, when we started doing things, we were all concerned about the 100-year storm, and that was all anybody talked about. And that all by itself was taking care of something that might happen once every 10 years or so, or had a statistical chance of happening 1% every year. But the greater damage is done by the 2-year exceedances.
Yeah.
When you have the lesser storms that happen more frequently, that's what causes your incising of streams and things
Yeah.
like that, because it just can't handle it. A stream bank full is supposed to take care of a 2-year storm. And then floodplain addresses the rest. But
So
It
Eileen,
doesn't
taking Pine Street out as the example, will there be a place so that other people who have been identified on like Locust Street, or even if there are individuals on Pine, because like I said, they're not shown on this map right now.
is there a mechanism for them to get us complaints and get it?
No,
added, or-
I'm talking about the ones that have already complained. Like, for instance, I know probably 4 or 5 people on my street who've complained, and they're obviously not represented on this.
Okay,
Because
and I'll double check the mapping, but I thought we took care of all the ones that we got.
like I said, I mean, Locust Street's completely cut off. Unless these are supposed to represent the parcels at the very end of Locust Street, then that would make
No, aren't they on
sense.
another map? Isn't there another map that could?
Yeah,
that
we may
connects?
be, but when we get to the next, this is cutting off right in between, I think, Locust and Walnut.
It is.
And so when we get to the one that is, hopefully you will see those.
Yeah, I didn't see it when I tried to match them, but I am not one to say I'm always right, so I could be proven wrong. Hope Frank is watching that. Oh,
Just
look,
put
and there it
that-
is. Yeah,
yeah.
you're exactly right. It's on
Okay.
page 7.
Okay, I thought we got the ones. that-
That's one of the challenges. Now, I will say, when we looked at this, anytime an area crossed 2 maps, we took wherever the largest section was, and we said that's the map that it was
Mhm.
That
associated
makes
with,
sense. Yeah,
understanding that you would look at both maps.
understood.
But I just wanted to make note, even though there's no color in Florida Park, we know there's issues in Florida Park. And we've listed that as a whole.
We took a big box around it and said requires.
I was
further
gonna
study.
say.
Yeah, both this and the avenues, when we get there, you'll see.
Let me ask you this question. I don't mean to prolong this, but, because I know one of the things here, one of the questions posed in your memo is about not only the expansion of it from 20 to 27 feet, some of these roads, but also like taking dedication of the roads. I mean, I guess that would help in both the short and the long term, right? If the township was to take dedication of those roads. But I guessing, I mean, that'll be up to us to kind of rank there. I mean, is that more of a solution than, is that's what I'm asking for. I mean, look, I personally think, and I've said this time and time again, that those roads should be dedicated, right? People are paying the same amount of taxes, they should always be dedicated.
But some of the roads that aren't dedicated, I'm sorry to interrupt you,
That's
are
fine.
not even like a full
No,
road.
the
Yeah.
13, like the one is 13 feet wide,
the
like,
one
But
meanders
they're not even paved, some of them, right? Or they were paved and now they're all broken up.
and
So,
meanders and everything else. So
yeah,
I guess my question on that was, I mean, will the dedication of the roads, I mean, it'll help for a little bit, but it's not going to help the rest of the rest of that neighborhood. Because you're still not dumping it. So you still. gotta
Well,
figure out
I
where
think
you're gonna dump
here's
it.
the key. If we go in, what we need to understand is what the board's desires are, so that we know how big of a project to really look at.
Mhm.
Because if you say, no, we don't want to do that, then we'll look for solutions that don't involve us repaving and redoing some of the roads. If you say, yeah, at the end of the day, we think the right answer is to go ahead and make these roads township roads and do all of that, then the solution may be that we're going to put storm sewers underneath those roads as we expand them, put more inlets in, do those things versus trying to do overground type of approaches or whatever in the solution. So there may be different solutions depending upon what the board's desire is and how we attack this. But this and there's some of the same problem in the heights and some of the same problem in the avenues that we have to really understand. For us to help guide and direct, we need to understand what the policy of the board is going to be in these areas so that we can make good recommendations back to you understanding that, obviously, if we're going to take dedication of roads, we're going to build a full storm sewer system underneath those roads. If we're not, we're probably not going to go in and put a full storm sewer system underneath roads that we're not taking dedication.
Yeah.
So every neighborhood, so to speak,
Those four
has
things.
got different challenges.
Absolutely.
And I think, maybe the way to look at this, I know that you've done a great job breaking these all down, but we're jumping. We went from Echo Valley, we're over here, then we're talking about Florida Park. And I think like you had said that, the heights and the avenues have some similar issues because of the
And
roads.
Florida Park.
And Florida Park. So maybe we look at that as like they've got their own challenges in that they've got these roads that are not completed and not dedicated. Maybe I'm just one of five, but to help me to understand it, what is a cost and what is a benefit to do this? Like, how do you eat an elephant? A piece at a time, right?
Yep.
So we take these things a little piece at a time.
Yep.
So maybe if we just do 2 main roads in Florida Park would mitigate a lot of that, but we need to understand how much that's involved. Maybe it's only 1 road through Florida Park. If we do that, it helps to mitigate, 80% of the issue. Same thing with the heights. If we do, a part here, maybe that mitigates. And even if we just take pieces of it, then we can kind of look at it and just kind of, the ones that are impacted tremendously, we look at those first. And even if we can get 30% relief in a short period, that's just the thought. That's how I think. If it costs $100 million, well, we can't do it realistically. But if it costs us $1 million and we help one entire neighborhood and how many houses, that's something to look at. Because again, if the fix is for the heights, that also helps another part of another neighborhood, because you can't help but think it's all downstream, right? Is it making sense what I'm trying to say?
Mhm. Yep. And I think just to help us start to understand, we don't want to work together and come up with a plan that says that the answer is to come back and take dedication of all these roads if the board has no desire to do that, right?
Right. Well,
So-
maybe not all the roads. Maybe you look at saying that there is, a spine. That's one of the roads that's not dedicated, and it's the spine. And if we fix that spine,
Yep.
then it would help at least, if we get 60% relief by doing that spine. Because then that 60% helps, at least it's not, at least we're doing something to help the entirety of it. You see what I'm trying to?
I think I have enough understanding. Eileen, do you have enough understanding of where to get us going?
Mhm.
So we'll come up with some alternatives, as well as we'll probably present to you kind of, if you give us the direction to move forward with all of this, but we would present with you, here's how we can phase it. Here's what it would be if we did it all at once. And here's what it would be if we just fix these pockets and say, this is how we're going to do it. So we'll come up with maybe like a 2 or 3 prong approach.
And we can always go back to the other parts with the pockets. Do you know what I mean? And I'm not saying that we just do the 60% at the
No, I hear
heights
you.
and say, see ya, we did something.
Yeah.
But at least to get us started, because these people are suffering.
Sure.
The people in the heights and the avenues and over in Florida Park, I'm at the bottom of the hill and I see, because all these people have cut down all kinds of trees over on Earl's Lane and French off of French and all that, and it just comes streaming down. But I'm not as affected as all these other people are, so I can just imagine what they have, because you all did that work in 13 to fix that culvert.
Yep.
And
Can we, I don't mean to cut you off, but
No,
can
I'm
we,
done.
can we talk about Upper St. Albans though? Because that's a lot of properties. I don't know if Eileen just want to go over it, or is that lower, the Upper St. Albans? That's like your Horton, your Tyson, and there's a lot of houses, a
Mhm.
lot of houses that are affected over there. I, had,
behind
And this is at
Culbertson,
least a
right?
neighborhood where we have an appropriate road system. Like, there's no question there. We don't have that added layer of decision making. But this one would, in my estimation, entail some upsizing of some of the pipes that are at the lowest end of this system, and including more inlets and piping to that low system that's existing right now. So that it could, in fact, based on calculation, actually mean parallel systems to the ones that exist right now. Those are found to be in reasonably good shape and will last. Just adding to increase the capacity, adding to those and then branching off of them to collect where it becomes a mess over land.
And this one, to me, I find this one the most interesting because it's essentially a terraced neighborhood, if you will, right? So you've got Tyson Road at the top, then Horton, a little bit lower grade than that, then Lewis, and then you've got Cayley.
Mhm.
And it's interesting, if you look at this map, it's consistent to what we've all kind of heard, where, the water, it's a straight line right down those three streets that I just mentioned. And I know, some of the residents think it's related to Culbertson. And
I
think
went
that
back
there-
and looked at the aerial photographs from before this was developed and where those storm sewers exist or where the streams were.
Yeah, so I just wanted
And you
to,
would not be able to build this today. There would be no doubt in my mind that this development would not be able to be constructed the way it was, because you'd have to work around the wetlands and the floodplain. And today's standards, this would not look anything like.
See how we've learned, right, from all these mistakes.
and you think that based off of what you just said, you have a pretty,
I think that this is a more straightforward fix. I'm not saying it's not going to be expensive.
no, I
too,
understand.
but it's definitely a more straightforward fix than the other 4 communities, Florida Park, Heights,
it.
Avenues. And
All right, well, I think you have your marching orders.
Yeah,
Do you want to continue to go through the maps, or do you want us to?
well, can I ask a question here? So I think what would be helpful for me is if we have a list of, and, on that list is issue location, issue description, root cause, impact, responsible party, estimated cost, and then your priority, Steve and Eileen. But all that information on each one of these issues in a list, would be more helpful for me than looking at a map and talking about, the way we have been. That's the way that I think that'd be helpful for me. If you could do that, I don't know if the rest of the board wants that, but I'd appreciate that if we could, if you could put those items on a list.
Yeah, I think that's kind of consistent. Correct me if I'm wrong, Supervisor Roberts, but I think that's kind of just what you were just explaining, or just having that conversation with the engineer on, of doing that. So I think that we have probably seen enough examples, speaking with the other supervisors that are here, but I think that that's exactly what Supervisor
So-
Roberts just.
I think
So if I
Yeah,
may-
that's where I wanted to start though, Len. That's why I said, right up front.
Well, yeah, but
Let's
we
look
didn't
at,
have that. We didn't have that, Supervisor Partridge. That's number one. Number two, there are a lot of people from the public that are on here virtually, that I think it was important for us to give a sampling of what we were looking at. We can use that list for us to move forward in making the
Well,
decisions.
I think the public should see the list too. I always think it's good to look at that and then get into the details, right? Then get into the maps and the details as we go along, but if you have the list as a starting point, you kind of can look at the whole scenario. How many of these issues do we have, where they're at, what's causing them, what's the impact, who's responsible, what's the estimated cost, what's the priority? If I'm a member of the public, I want, that would be a good thing to see. And then as you go through each one, in a priority order, then you go into the details. So.
Well, thank you for that comment. And I appreciate that. I think that what we did was still sufficient and important As the township manager said, he did have. his
I
list.
know you do, Lynn. I got you. I hear you.
Yeah, Mr. Neese.
So if I can, I just want to, I'm going to take a moment. What I need a couple directions so that we can move forward, so that we take this. We have this list. I apologize that I thought this was in your packet. There was a conversion issue. We will get this out to you by the end of the night or tomorrow morning. But we've taken, the list includes what sheet it's on, so you can relate it back to the map. Like I said, if there's something that's on both two sheets, we may not have listed it twice. We've ranked these for the top 15. We've listed it in the location where it is. And then we've also listed whether we think it's a township capacity issue, a road erosion issue, and further downstream erosion, or something along those lines. And then if we go over and we have a ranking, and then in whatever kind of notes we had kind of there. So here, if I can wrap kind of up where we are and say what we would like. And then real quick, at the bottom of this particular spreadsheet, I just stopped the video, I apologize. Hold on a second. Let me look at this. We have a list of the ones that we said, if you saw the ones in red, why wasn't it going? There we go. The ones in red that we said, we have that list. We did not rank property owner issues. We didn't think that was our place.
Right.
But we did put what we think the issues were. And then finally, we have state issues, and we did rank those. So here's what would help us for next steps. If I can engage Eileen to start putting together a cost analysis for the top 15 for you, so that you at least have an idea of what those costs are. I will tell you the top 15 is probably somewhere between 5 to 10 years, just what I know in what's involved in these. This is, I mean, we've thrown some numbers around pre-COVID that we're looking over $20 million for just starting to address some of these. And today that number may be at least twice that amount or more. And so we have to do two things. We have to, one, figure out what the costs are, and we have to figure out some potential funding mechanisms to do this, because this isn't something that's going to be just money sitting around. We're going to have to figure that out. And so if it's acceptable to you, Eileen will go back and start the process of starting to put that together. There are some additional costs of her to do that. I just need to know, is there a limit? And where we are, you want her to present to you that cost at the next meeting, what that is, and then you approve it, and then we get started. One, if you get this,
Can we give you not to exceed tonight so we get going on this?
yeah, I was wondering, you know.
Well, we can't, because we can't expend funds under the Sunshine Act.
Right, because it's not part of the agenda, right?
Yeah, we left it more as a discussion than,
Yeah.
Yeah.
an actual item. And then the next piece though would be, if, you know, like if she could get us for sure, if we think that problem, the culverts in Echo Valley are the number one priority, and that we want to save the roads that we've just spent millions of dollars on. You know, if we take that and we kind of start getting an estimate of what that project would be, so that we could get started on something right away. And I know we have neighborhoods that are really concerned as well. So we don't want to just leave anybody out, but we have to get started somewhere and move forward. And we did focus on making sure that where we had spent taxpayer dollars, we're not throwing that money away in the process. And so that's how we focused it.
What's the board's desire? I mean, I think obviously we have to put it on the agenda for next meeting.
Right,
We
so we
will.
need a cost
Okay.
Not to exceed number, I guess, for Eileen's work. And then, we know I think you know what we're looking for, right?
I think she's got a lot of the items. We just need to go further.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if there is a way to, like I understand that we said, the dedication of all the roads and the avenues and in the heights, if there's a way that we can, if you can look at, not doing all of that, but again, picking from this or, to mitigate. Because we're
That's
not
where
gonna
a
fix
cost estimate
everything
of that would
100.
get a little like, as I see the further study areas, I think the number that I would provide you isn't the end result for the fix, but it would be to study it, to get the end result for the fix. So,
Yeah, well, whatever your next step is to get you to the point where you can bring us more information.
right.
So we can go out and get pricing,
Right, and we
whatever
can
we gotta do
start
to get some of
doing
this
some
stuff
of this
moving.
work,
Right.
yeah.
We want to get some of this stuff moving, because right now it's January. We don't want to be talking about this in May. We want to have numbers.
And we
hopefully attack
have,
some of this stuff.
and we have didn't we get some of this money from the infrastructure or whatever the federal government
Yeah,
calls
so
it?
we had the American Relief
Relief?
Act dollars. I had to remember which one it was. We had the American Relief Act dollars that were last year, and we received half of that, and we received the other half in June of this year.
It's a total of
It
500,000?
was a total of 1.4.
Oh,
Close.
And maybe it's, we take the shotgun approach and we hit some items in some of these areas and start mitigating some problems in each neighborhood.
yeah, that's what I was trying to get
I
at.
mean, granted, you're not, we gotta be realistic. We're not gonna go over the heights tomorrow and bring every road up to state township standards. It's just, it's physically impossible. cost-wise.
And then
But
also
there might be
not,
some
not
problems where
fixing all
we
three
might be able to
culverts
mitigate some of those
in Echo
problems by
Valley.
getting some properties, putting these above ground basins in, and start getting the flow of the water into these areas so we can mitigate some of the problems these people are experiencing.
I mean, I think we all agree our goal here is not to be that old parable of the boy putting his finger in the dam and then he puts another one out over here and puts
No,
another finger in there.
no.
I mean, I think that's the consistent theme here is exactly that. We, as Supervisor Roberts, like I've said, it's getting that elephant and then taking it down from there.
Yeah.
I think so. I think we've discussed this enough. I don't know if there's any members of the public who have any public comment on this from this presentation, if they want to add anything. So Steve, does anyone have their hand raised?
Just give me a moment. We got several. So Mr. Rosenthal.
I am going to save my comment for later. I don't have a comment on this presentation.
Oh, okay.
This is Patty Wilson, 4111 Battles Lane. I applaud that you're finally getting to this, but I fear we will be discussing this if you don't give direction tonight that is actually more specific. So I would urge you to take the top 3 or 5 items from your list, direct Eileen to give you very specific information, because rather than hitting 15, which is unlikely, and if we haven't learned this from the sewer project, it would be better to select top 3, in my view, get all of the information and get working, or else we will end up with a project that will take 20 years rather than 10 or 5. So, if Echo Valley has township capacity issues, I don't know what 2 or 3 are, but I'm going to urge you to make more specific what you want Eileen to do, and get working on those by spring or summer of this year. Thank you.
The only thing I would just add there, just in case it got lost in translation, is we cannot, under the new Sunshine Act, municipalities are prohibited from expending monies that are not previously posted on an agenda unless there's an emergency. This would not fall under one of the emergencies. This is part of the new changes to the Sunshine Act that came in place in August of 2021. So while I think all of us would agree with what Ms. Wilson just said right there, we can't authorize Eileen to move forward because as the township manager said, it would be an additional expense that we would have to authorize. And again, with the Sunshine Act now in place, we cannot allow to have motions on the floor. It needs to be duly advertised to the public. So that's why we have to hold off until the next agenda meeting. Excuse me, until the next agenda. Anyone else, Mr. Neese?
Let me see. Yes, hold on a second.
Good evening, Paul Seligson, 4727 Mill Hollow Lane. At the corner of Mill Hollow and Westchester Pike, right where the Malvern School is, we used to have a storm drain. And when the sewer box was put in for Rafferty Subaru across the street, that storm drain has disappeared. And the problem about all this is that the storm water is coming onto Mill Hollow, which is a private drive. And we, the homeowners along here, as the drive falls apart, and we have to get our own paving people to put this drive back together. And it would very much be appreciated to find the stormwater drain or the inlet that used to be there and reactivate it. Thank you.
Would that be added to the state list?
Yes.
Because it's Westchester Pike, correct?
Stay
Well,
rural.
I think we have to find out where it was. Because I thought it was off Westchester Pike, but we'll need to verify that.
Sure.
Okay.
Do we have any records of?
I don't know. We'll have to look at that.
Here's an
Eileen, originally you said it was on a plan. It used to be on a plan, this storm drain.
George, are you familiar whether or not this was on a plan that we have a documentation of?
Hey, Steve, I'd have to look that up. I don't have it right at my fingertips.
Have to go back and
Okay.
some pretty
Yeah, I-
significant history.
Yeah, I think it puts them on the spot,
Well,
so we'll look at
Yeah,
it.
we'll look. I just thought sometimes George knows things right off the
Yeah,
top
I
of his
know.
head. So yeah, we'll go back and look at it and we'll have an answer for you hopefully at the next meeting.
Perfect. Who's next?
I don't have anyone next other than I believe Mr. Rosenthal wants, I have a note here that Mr. Rosenthal actually had wanted to comment on 13.7, but I assume he could speak when we get down to public comment.
That's
And if
correct.
it's something that you want to readdress, you can.
All right, so seeing no more public comment on 13.8, we'll move down to old business. There is no old business. Any additional business? Is there any board comment?
Just one, Mr. Chairman. We had our finance committee meeting this week, and we've talked about on this board, we've talked about the pilot, looking at the nonprofits that have the pilot program. It's a payment in lieu of taxes. We talked to the finance committee, and the finance committee has been looking at this. So we're going to have them come back with a recommendation. That's what they're tasked with for their next meeting. So they'll come back to us in about a month's time with a plan on the payment in lieu of taxes. They're going to look at everybody, look at all the ones that already have a payment in lieu, and then other ones that potentially could because they have an impact on the township.
Perfect. Any questions for Supervisor Roberts? Any other board comment?
I would just make note, I know that the finance committee meets once a month. They may take a couple months to get all that together because it's a pretty big project, but they are going to be.
But it's
working
on their agenda. for
It is
next
on their
month.
agenda.
Yep.
It will be on their agenda next month.
That's great. Thank you, Supervisor Roberts. We'll now move into public comment. I do want the record to reflect that the board did receive an email from Diane Riccio, 209 4th Avenue, Newtown Square. That has been made a part of the record, and as such will be preserved. Is there any other public comment, Mr. Neese?
I do have Mr. Rosenthal again.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. 13.7.
Real quick, Mr. Rosenthal, can you just give us your name and your address,
Yes,
please?
sorry about that. Louis Rosenthal, 20 Harrison. The item 13.7 was you authorized the solicitor and staff of the township to take necessary steps to purchase properties within the township. There wasn't really much discussion, so I'm curious as to what those necessary steps are. Number one. Number two, why would the township purchase properties as opposed to using its power of eminent domain if it needed properties? And are there properties that the town is contemplating purchasing or acquiring? Just there was not much discussion going on.
Mhm. Well, I'll answer that kind of from the last question to the first one. The way to answer that is the township is always looking at properties inside the township that can benefit the public, that can serve a public good. We prefer to go through this manner first, knowing that we do have the authority to go through condemnation. But as the municipalities tend to do, we only like to reserve that for extraordinary measures. And then with regards to which parcels it is, for obvious reasons, I'm not going to discuss which parcels they are, Mr. Rosenthal, because I don't want to run afoul of any legal discussions that we've had with our council, but more importantly, I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, and so this would come with some funding mechanism as well, if there was a purchase.
In which sense?
The necessary steps. So purchase, I'm assuming means acquiring for value. So there would be township funds that would be expended.
Yeah, so the way that it works in Pennsylvania is that we can only give fair market value. So if you remember a few meetings ago, the Township Board of Supervisors approved appraisals of various properties. We now have those appraisals and now we can go and start.
Got it. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
And Chairman Altieri, it's Joe Catania.
Mr. Catania.
Yeah, Mr. Rosenthal, I don't know if you heard in the beginning of the meeting, the agenda item was modified not to say purchase, but it was modified to say pursue purchase. So it's not actually purchasing, it's taking the necessary steps to pursue purchasing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other public comment, Mr. Neese?
I do not see, I do see another hand of it. I think it's Paul's, but I think I'm going to lower it. Paul, if you still want to say something again, phrase it again, please. He did. Okay. All right, Paul.
Hi, it's Paul Seligson, 4727 Mill Hollow Lane, and I come to you now as chairman of Newtown Square and Bloom. Newtown Square and Bloom, we've done a very exhaustive effort to try to find a waterer to accompany the driver to water the hanging baskets. And this would be Tuesdays and Fridays. It's 5 hours each time. And I've approached the AP, the teacher who oversees the AP class at Marple Newtown High School, as well as the environmental class. And I've also approached the sheriff from Delco, and the DA's office from Delco County, from Delaware County. And the Delaware County has this really interesting program. I was talking to them earlier today to see if they'd heard anybody that might be interested. And it's an accelerated rehabilitative disposition. And they use the acronym ARD, like dog. And it's for people that have a clean record, but have a one-time DUI and they need to do community service. And they say typically it's the people look for service 2 to 3 to 4 weeks after the judgment against them. And so what I'm asking, which is to help to do watering in May, April, end of April, May, June, July, and August, that's all, these people haven't come, they may not even have done the deed yet. So, so I don't have anybody. I mean, I want to keep my options open, and I asked the lady the administrator, her name is Diane Ed Brill. And Steve, I sent you a one-note note about all this because it could be used by other committees who are looking for volunteers. And she wants to have as many volunteer requests as possible for people to do community service. And so the way I left it with her is I said, please leave my request open. And as the time gets closer, I'll check back. But as of right now, I don't have anybody from the Delaware County, nor do I have anybody from the high school. So the question becomes now, I have to get back to Steve Mastardi if we want the hanging baskets, because the plant material needs to be ordered like right now before February. And he's not even sure he can get exactly, he likes to have 5 or 7 different things in the same basket. And some of the things may be already gone, but we'll just go with what we can get. But I do need an inclination if the board would like to have the hanging baskets, but that means they would have to have the 2 people on Tuesdays and Fridays.
What is the board thinking on this? Do we want to take it under advisement? I mean, I think that what it comes down to is the personnel. Do we have the manpower to do it? I mean, I think all of us collectively like the hanging baskets and want the hanging baskets, but it comes down to whether we have anyone.
I mean, here's what I will tell you, and I'm speaking for George, and George, feel free to override me when I say this. We will do what the board tells us to do, and we'll carry it out. I will tell you, if you take 2 people, that's 10 hours twice a week, so it's 20 hours. We're taking 2 people out, well, actually more than that, because it's not typically a summer help person. This is, oftentimes we lose a driver, which we already knew we were going to do.
How did we do that before?
It started out, and Paul, you can help me with this, but my understanding is it started out, there was a few folks who were just doing it as kind of for the township. I can't remember, was it being paid for by somebody, Paul?
Originally, and that would be 10 years ago, or even 12, it was done by SAP. When I asked SAP for a donation, they said, we're not going to give you any money, but how about we water it and add it to our landscaping plan? And they did that for 3 years. And then, they had difficulty, and we had not yet figured out quite all of the how to do the fertilizing so that it wouldn't burn. We were using fertilizer, from the Starties that was burning actually when it got really, really hot. Anyway, they said they didn't want to do it anymore. And that's when the township came about. And then Peter Lake, who was a member of Parks and Recreation for 2 or 3 years, he was a waterer on one of the days. I don't think he did both days, but on one of the days, he would be the waterer. And of course, that helped a great deal because that halved the cost on that particular route.
I'm not sure if I think they're actually in the seat, and they have a wand kind of thing that they're holding up to
They sit next to the driver and they do the wand work?
Is that correct, George?
Public Works uses our truck. We supply the driver and drive around all the locations. And then in the ideal situation, there's a volunteer that just rides with them and sticks the wand out the window and waters the plant. And they go on to the next one and the next one and the next one, 100 times.
And the township, we took the old street sweeper, right, and converted it into this watering.
So correct. Originally.
Yeah, so the township has shown its commitment to this.
Yeah.
I mean, to have 2 people out for that amount of time, I mean, we can't make a decision tonight because it's a cost factor. It's something we'll have to look at again.
So then do you mind if we can't make a decision tonight, I'll go to Steve and say that, I run the risk that he says, well, in that case, let's just pass on this year. And and I don't mind. I mean, I do.
Well, Paul, and I hear what you're saying, but, and Mr. Catania, I always forget that you're on the call, so feel free to jump in. But I believe that Supervisor Roberts Lightcap is actually correct on that. I mean, we would, if we were to agree today, we would be expensing township funds. And I don't know if we can do that without running afoul of the Sunshine Act. I mean, I think it's a gray zone, but I will tell you, I'm not going to have the Ethics Commission coming down on me or on this board. So I think it's probably better to err on the side of caution.
I agree.
I think the only question would be, what I would say is we are paying the person. The thing is we're moving them from fulfilling one duty to fulfilling another. And that's the issue. And I do think.
We're already doing half the job plus the truck plus the work. So.
Yeah.
Paul,
Yes.
what was, when you talked to the DA's office regarding this program, what was their thought about the consistency of having somebody to be available?
So 85% of the people before them are asked to do 32 hours of community service. And if you divide 32 hours by, I think they can do it 8 times. 8 times 4 is 32. So, but they don't think that it's out of the ballpark, that we will find a volunteer, but the volunteers don't come, they don't ask for something until they're, commanded to go do it. And that's like 2, 3, 4 weeks after their hearing.
What about our youth aid panel? Is that up and running yet with COVID being on the fritz? Or even Marple's youth aid panel? I mean, that might be something to look at.
I do believe they've met on occasion. I don't know if they're meeting as consistently as they were before.
Just trying to think of something more local. Paul, have you tried any of the youth aid panels around?
I don't know. I don't know anything about that. I've never tried it.
Well, I can touch base with you, but the youth aid panels are when you have a juvenile, instead of having them go through the judicial system, you have them, if it's like a low-level crime, you would have them go through the youth aid panel so it doesn't attach to their permanent record and hurt them as it comes to college admissions and everything. So Newtown Township has one, Marple has one. It's usually done through the district court and the police department, made up of residents inside the community. And essentially they sit as an adjudicator and hand out community service-esque punishments, if you will. I have no experience from my minor life, but I know a lot of individuals who went through it.
Great. I mean, I'll call the district court tomorrow.
Yeah.
You might also just reach out to the chief. He could probably guide you. I know typically the lieutenant has been handling this, but he's out right now.
I will. Yep. Sounds good.
Mr. Chairman, can I mention something about the ARD?
Please, Mr. Catania.
Yeah, I mean, from what I understand, there was an ARD community service program, or I should just say a county community service program. They don't have that any longer from what I understand. And it's up to the individual to go out and find community projects, and they submit and somebody signs for it. So if someone wanted to do some work for, let's just say a church, and they did 8 hours of community service for the church, someone from the church would sign off on it, and then they'd present that to the ARD people, and they would either accept it or not accept it as their community service. So there's no actual community service program that's administering the community service any longer. It's all up to the individual.
Well, I mean, I'm looking at something that has the person's name, the program administrator. And she was very clear about how it works these days, that in the formerly somebody had, if they had to get 24 hours, they had to go and in 1 week do 8 hours a day, 3 days a week to get their 24 hours, or 4 days a week. And now what they're offering is a more piecemeal approach, so that somebody who has a job doesn't have to stop their job or quit their job in order to accomplish the work requirements for community service.
Well, let's do this so we don't get into, so we don't have to go down that discussion. Paul, what I would do is I would reach out to those youth aid panels, see if those youth aid panels have any individuals in the pipeline, both Newtown, Marple, maybe even try Edgemont, anything that kind of touches us, Radnor. As the solicitor said, we can't vote on anything tonight with regards to this because of it expending funds and it not being previously on the agenda. But I think that it's probably safe to say, from reading the room, that we need to try to find a volunteer for this, to do this every year. I think that's probably a fair assumption to make based off of the room here. That's what I would do, Paul.
Okay. I thank you for your suggestions.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Any other individuals for public comment, Mr. Neese?
I do not see anyone there. One moment. Check, make sure nothing came into the. No, we're good.
Good. All right. I don't think there's any items that we have to add for the next agenda. And so I'll adjourn this meeting at 9:40. Thank you all.